This was the first morning of peace I think I've felt in over a year. I've never hidden how angry and sad I've been since the 2024 presidential election. For most of 2025, I was either burying myself in work or staying in bed, nurturing the worst depressive episode I've experienced in a decade. I can't remember the day-to-day of last year. It's all blurred together into one long ball of stress. There were bright moments, sure, but so many low moments. There were opportunities I wanted to take but couldn't, plans I'd made that I pushed to the wayside because all I had the energy to do most days was lie in bed feeling sad, sleep, or write like my life depended on it. But then I ended up here, sitting in a beautiful courtyard in a guest house near Sally, about an hour and a half from Dakar, within walking distance of a beach that made my heart sing, eating a delicious croissant, listening to the birds in the trees, reading one of my books, and reveling in the feeling of Senegal's lush coastal wind. I found out about this writing retreat from Rose Pan-African Education from a sponsored Instagram story of all places. I did my research, I sat on the application, I second-guessed myself, and then I applied. When I got in, I was overjoyed and flabbergasted and still stuck in that depression. But I made a choice not to let my depression or myself stop me from going to a country I've wanted to visit for years. In my mind, traveling to Senegal became my reward for surviving 2025. I'm a realist most days, but when I'm depressed, I'm nothing more than a pessimist to my core. When I'm depressed, everything is my fault. Nothing good will come to me, and everything will go wrong. Every small disappointment feels like a life-altering failure. Every rejection feels like a wound that will never heal. When I'm depressed, even silence is chaotic. I firmly believe in the adage that wherever you go, there you are. But this trip helped me realize that sometimes a new location can reveal a new room inside yourself, a space you might not let yourself inside every day, but is still very much a part of you. That's what this trip did for me. Instead of flying from Detroit through New York and then straight to Dakar as planned, I missed my connection at JFK and was rerouted through Charles de Gaulle, an airport I hate deeply and a route I purposefully avoided. At some point during this detour, maybe while sitting in the Air France terminal at JFK, eating the worst pizza I've ever had, drinking the worst glass of overpriced wine I've ever ordered, complaining to my mother, I realized I had a choice. I would make it to Dakar 12 hours later than planned, but I would make it. For the first time in over a year, I let myself focus on the win rather than the minor inconveniences that got in the way. Sure, my trip went from a cute 12 hours to almost a full day, and by the time I landed in Dakar, it was near midnight. I was tired, a little dehydrated, my back was killing me, and my luggage was still in New York. But I made it, and all I could do was laugh. A kind driver, Abdullah, drove me from Place Dion Airport into Dakar close to midnight. I checked into a hostel, bought a big bottle of water, had to switch rooms because the lights didn't work in the first, hand washed my clothes in the sink, took a hot shower, and went to sleep in my birthday suit. But I woke up to this beautiful view of trees swaying in the early morning breeze. I wouldn't know it yet, but this beautiful wind would follow us around Dakar. I grew up in the Bay Area. I was a water baby. I could sit and stare at the ocean, see a big-ass lake for hours, and the breeze off the Atlantic was healing. On our first full day together, the group stopped for lunch at the base of the African Resistance Monument and then walked up the almost 200 steps to see the statue, with that breeze acting as a warm, reassuring presence at our back. High above the city, that breeze turned into an almost violent gust, but the view was worth it. So was the sight of people gathering on the steps to watch Senegal play in the Africa Cup of Nations. They won that game and the entire tournament, by the way. An auspicious sign, I think. That wind was the most beautiful welcome to a land that maybe one of my ancestors had known hundreds of years ago. And maybe that memory stored deep down in my bones and DNA was the thing that kept my nervous system calm after over a year of freeze and panic. When I woke up on that first morning in Dakar with one outfit that was a little bit damp, I made another unconscious decision not to let anything ruin this trip for me, not even myself. I wore the same outfit I flew in for that first full day before some of the other women loaned me dresses and toiletries. Our visit to a market a couple days later turned into a mad rush for clothes and shoes, while my suitcase was God knew where. I got used to hand washing my intimates at night, and I let Abdullah and the trip's organizer Nicole search for my bag, relinquishing some of the control I normally held onto with a vice grip. When everyone else was surprised, shocked, and worried about my bag, I entertained the idea that I might never see that suitcase again. But nothing in it was precious to me, I realized. It could all be replaced. I could survive without it. I was already surviving without all the things I thought I needed. When my mother asked after my bag, worried about it as an avatar for her worry about me, I got used to saying, I don't know. A sentence that felt dangerous after a year of feeling like I needed to know everything, because everything I thought I knew was slipping away. But every time I told her I didn't know about my bag's whereabouts, I told her what I did know about the trip I was on, and that balance was freeing. On our second day, we arrived early at the port to catch a ferry to Gorée Island so we could visit before the other tours rushed in mid-morning. For much of the short trip, we stood with our backs against the boat, staring out into the Atlantic, and I thought of all the pain and loss that water held between Senegal and the Americas. I imagined all we've lost along that route, and still that breeze was magical. Just at the end of the trip, the ferry took a sharp turn to reveal an island that was as beautiful as the painful history it housed. On Gorée, Europeans held men, women, and children, torturing, raping, and abusing them before loading them onto ships to be enslaved across the Atlantic. The French fort has been turned into a tourist attraction called the House of Slaves. Our beautiful tour guide, Kenza, walked us gently through Gorée and the fort, recounting the painful history while also welcoming us home. Back in Dakar, we capped off the day at the Museum of Black Civilizations. I love Black history and art museums, and the artwork in this museum made my brain and heart happy. Everywhere in Senegal, museums, art galleries, on street corners, we were surrounded by art, and I've never been more inspired. These are just a small sampling of the art pieces in my camera roll taken at the museum, on Gorée, and later in Sally. I never quite realized just how muted the colors in Ohio are. Sure, I love the metro parks and state parks, but those greens and reds and purples and yellows have nothing on what I saw in Senegal. Those yellows and dark greens and blues blew my mind. Everywhere I looked, there was so much color, so much life, so much joy, so much to see. After a few days in Dakar, we went to Sally for the writing workshop portion of this trip, and wouldn't you know it, but Abdullah showed up with my suitcase, safe and sound. In truth, I wrote very little during this writing retreat. For the past 2 months, I've written very little, but by the beach, I learned to listen. Sometimes, I still close my eyes and try to remember sitting in that courtyard, listening to the bird song, or the palm tree leaves slapping together like birds' wings, or the sound of the waves crashing against the shore, or the rooster clocking into work at 4 a.m. in Dakar, or the sound of the call for prayer early each morning and throughout the day. I close my eyes and try to remember how at peace I felt just to be living each day, fully awake. Senegal didn't cure my depression. It just reminded me that I was more than just that. And alongside the birdsong and the breeze, I'll be carrying that reminder along with me this year. None of us knows what lies ahead, but I hope whatever is in front of me leads me back to Senegal, back to Africa, and back to myself, piece by piece. Happy New Year.